What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Today, I have kind of like a question, because I speculate, right, that there are more African Americans in America than being reported, right? And let me tell you why I believe this. You know how they keep saying we're 13% of America's population? We've apparently been 13% forever, right? For some reason, we don't change, but we're 13% of America's population, which almost seems like we are an insignificant portion of America. So if we're just 13%, right, and we know that there's black, the big groups are black, Spanish, and white, right? We know most of the Latinos are really Native Americans, right? But we know there are a lot of white Latinos. They speak Spanish because Latino Spanish is a white language from Europe. And just like you have American white people from Europe, you have Latino white people from Europe, from Spain, from Portugal, they white. They call themselves Latino, but they white, right? So they classify themselves as white. We also know that some Latinos also like to call themselves white, but they're not. We know some Arabs are classified as white when they come over here, but they're not, right? But if you really sit back and think about it, if we're just 13% of America's population, right, an almost insignificant number, why is it that, and this is all speculation because I can't prove any of this, but if you just think about it, right, if we're just 13% of the population, why is it in social media we are overly represented in movies, commercials, TV shows? It looks like it looks like we're about half the America's population. It looks like we're 3/4 of America's population. For such a small group of people, if we're really 13% of the population compared to everybody else, for such a small group of people in this country, we sure do make a massive impact. And for some reason, our little punk ass 13% population vote seems to be insanely important to the rest of the fucking 80-something% of America who's not African American or black. Because keep in mind, they do lump up continental Africans in with us, period. That's just what it is, whether you like it or not, right? And the number of Africans over here are inconsequential, actually. The numbers of African immigrants in America is very, 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 very tiny, right? So they're lumped up with us, which is fine because they're black. They black, we African, they from Africa, that's fine. But even with all that combined, for such a small population, why are we overly represented in the media? Every time you turn on the TV, you see black, white. They always put black and white. Even if you look at all the TV shows, they're trying to show the future as black and white. They're starting to emphasize a lot of mixed race people on movies and TVs and series. They're trying to develop an idea of the relationship of black and white people mixing. Usually it'll be a black man and a white woman, right? On the TV shows, there's always a black man and, well, no, sometimes you'll see it both. You'll see a black man, a white woman, but mostly it's a white man and a black woman, because the white man is the one that's in charge, so they get the black woman to be the subservient, because they want to show, hey, white men, it's okay to get you a black woman if you have to make yourself a mulatto child in the future. That's okay. Accept that. That's what the shows are saying. And they're saying you can have a black woman. Black women, you can be with a white man. Is in the future, you can have mulatto children, and they are a representation of the future, right? You don't see them pushing narratives like black man, Asian woman in the future. You don't see Asian woman, Spanish man. You don't see them pushing shows with, you may see Asian, black, white man, Asian woman. You'll see that, sometimes, right? But for the most part, it's always black woman, or they'll try to find like a mixed black woman, find a white man, because they want white people to look at the mixed mulatto kids as an acceptable group to procreate, because at the end of the day, white people are going to turn, that's the direction they're going. They coming back to the fold, right? But I have a sneaky suspicion that we're much larger than they're saying. And I also believe there's a lot more Africans in Africa than they're saying as well. right? Because keep in mind, they try to control the narrative, but that continent is massive, yo. How is it even possible, especially since the continent of Africa, because of the looting of Europe, they don't have the robust networks to really do these counts. How many of these countries are giving accurate counts of their population? How many of these non-governmental organizations are going into the rural areas to see how many people are there? Africa is massive. And the continent itself, even on the map, it doesn't even represent how big Africa is. You know, and they make Europe look bigger than it is. Europe is a peninsula. It's very small. Africa is literally the planet, right? And that whole thing is popular. I'm assuming, and there's other people who've made these assumptions, that there's probably like 3 to 4 billion Africans on that continent right now, right? And I think that there's at least double the amount of African Americans in America than being reported. I truly believe that, because it just don't make sense how such a think about it. If we're just 13% of the America's population, right? Our vote shouldn't even matter. Nothing we say or do should matter, because we wouldn't have the power to do anything. What's 10%? What's 15%? We can all, if you have 15% of your paycheck missing, you would complain, but it wouldn't kill you, right? If you have 15% of your paycheck missing, it would hurt. You would notice it, but it wouldn't kill you. You'd still be able to pay your bills, right? So if African Americans are 13% of America's population, even if every African American went out and voted, right? If we went out and voted, every one of us, right? We still wouldn't technically be big enough to make any real change, because all you would have to do is the other groups would just casually vote, and they outnumber us overwhelmingly. So why is the influence of us so significant? And this is where I see the lie. This is where you see the government and powers that be that do everything they can to keep us oppressed mentally and financially. They may not want to tell the truth about the true number of how many of us is really over here. But you know what doesn't lie? You know what doesn't lie? Corporations and their money, right? If you pay attention to corporations and their money and who they pander to and why, they're definitely afraid of African Americans boycotting their businesses. Definitely afraid. Because when African Americans boycott businesses as a unit, we do have runoffs of other POCs and other Europeans who also join us in the boycott. So you telling me 15% of America's population can boycott any company, and we can pretty much effectively shut them down? Remember back in the day when we actually, when the family was still, when the black family was still connected? We talking about before Reagan, back when the black family was together, right? Mother and father, when we were fighting together, right? When we boycotted the buses, we shut shit down. Like when we was operating like a unit, we be shutting shit. People are afraid of us. Why is these corporations afraid of 15% of us insignificant numbers? Corporations pander to us immediately, right? As if they need us. And also, their numbers are better and more accurate than the government, because they make money off of us. So they pander to us, right? They sell products to us, right? We advertise, and we are basically the free advertisement and promotion for a lot of these corporations and companies, right? How is this small ass 15% so significant in the grand scheme of things? How? We can't possibly, either if we're only 13% of America's population, and we have this amount of influence, and we're this important in politics, if we're this important, then we must be more important than we ever think. We must be more significant than even we think. We must be more influential than even we can possibly imagine on our wildest day when we embellish ourselves. It must be more than that. We can't have that much power. Why is it that if we're only 13% of America's population, as a group, we are the second richest group of Americans? Because you gotta remember, if you break America down, it's really not just white people, right? White people is a made up term. There are different groups of white people, right? from different parts, like Williamsburg, Virginia. Them Dutch. You go down to Virginia, the whole atmosphere is Dutch. These guys are Dutch. In Maryland, we got the Quakers. They're completely different from the other Europeans. And then you got the Southern Europeans. You got the Midwest. These people are from different parts of Europe. And then you got the different Spanish groups, the different Native American groups, the different Asian groups. We may call them Asian, but you got Indians, you got Cambodians, you got Chinese, you got Japanese. I mean, you got various different sects. So if you add this, the sex of how how people identify, and since everybody lumps black people up into one group anyway, right? We African Americans, because we are uniquely multiple forms of we're multiple different Africans mixed into one group. We're one of the biggest individual units in America, and we also generate like the most money. Even though we don't know how to spend our money, we don't know how to use our money effectively as a group. We don't do the same thing. We don't enclose our economies like the Jews do. We don't enclose our economies like the first generation Latinos do, or the first generation Cambodians do. Chinese people, they don't do. Actually, Chinese people, they don't really work together like I think. They make a Chinatown, but those are usually corporations, Chinese corporations setting up places so they can monitor the Chinese citizens. Like they're not what you think they are. But even they create a little economy for themselves. We used to do that, but every time we do that, white people come and destroy it. So it's not like we haven't done it. It's just every time we do it, for some reason, Europeans are so afraid of us, they destroy our shit. They're not afraid of anybody else, but they destroy our shit, right? Why? How can 13% of our population be so small? If you go to every major city, significant amount of Africans. If you look at Africans, American Africans, if you look at major, all the big metropolitan areas, if you go anywhere, you're gonna see a large amount of Africans everywhere, period. Everywhere, in every building, on the street, if you look at every metropolitan city, you look at their governments, you got black people everywhere. We're everywhere, right? Most Europeans live, maybe it's because most of the population of Europeans live in the rural areas, right? But they don't really get counted as much. They don't get paid attention to as much because they live in small towns in the middle of nowhere, in the woods, in the center of America, right? There's not many of us out there, but we even out there. I just got a sneaky suspicion that there's more of us. Because you see all these, we're making a whole bunch of mulattoes. We make a lot of mulattoes, right? How is it that we have this reach, our tiny little population over here, right? How are we doing this? It just doesn't make any sense. Nobody will look at America and think that we're only 13% of this population. You turn on the TV, we're everywhere. Turn on the radio, we're everywhere. You can't get away from us. Either we get around like that, either we're that powerful, right? And for a group of people that supposedly on welfare and we're struggling, we got a lot of money. African Americans have a massive middle class in America. We're massive. That's why I don't understand why some of these Pan-Africans and pro-blacks don't talk about our massive and ever-growing middle and upper class. We have a significantly massive and ever-growing middle class, right along with the other Europeans and everybody else who have a middle class and upper class, right? But they only focus on the poverty, right? You don't see white people in America focusing on the trailer park. You don't see Asians focusing on their ghettos in America and them living in the trailer park in the hoods. You don't see no other group concentrating on the people who live in the lower realms of society within America. Why? Because they don't highlight that. But you only get lazy ass black people who just focus on the ghetto part as if we the only people in America that got ghettos, right? And that do ghetto shit, right? They never focus on the fact that the majority of African Americans are in the middle class. We're doing pretty well, right? Despite all the shit that we talk about. But yeah, guys, tell me if any of y'all, because I can't prove this shit because I'm not gonna run a company where I go along doing any census and anything. But I got a sneaky feeling that there's a lot more of us in this country than they want to admit. And I think the reason for that is they don't want to scare these Europeans who are already afraid of the Great Replacement Theory. They're already afraid. They're already afraid. And if you tell them all of a sudden that they're already minorities, if they get it in their mind that they're already minorities, they might start flipping out. They're already flipping out now, right? They're already flipping now. So what's going to happen once they put it in their mind that they are in fact minorities in America? That the people that they subjugated, enslaved, and terrorized for 100 years are now a bigger population than them, or now grown to the point to where they're that significant and that influential and have that much leverage. Because remember, the power is in the numbers. And we have the youth. We have the young numbers and we have the youth, right? It just don't make any sense. Because the actions and the moves that African people are making globally doesn't mesh with the data that we're this somehow small population. We've been here longer than everybody. We literally populated the entire world. How are we going to be insignificant? We've always been, as Africans, we've always been one of the majorities in the world, along with Asians. They're a big population too. But we've always been one of the biggest groups ever. But they always make it seem like Africa wasn't that many people in this giant continent with all these resources, great weather. All of a sudden there was sparse populations, but in Europe, where they barely have anything and all they do is kill each other and destroy and slaughter each other, they got a massive population? Come on. Shit ain't adding up. I don't know. But I'm just speculating. But tell me what you guys think. Have y'all ever thought about that too? Because we got ways, our economy, our trillions of dollars of purchasing power that we don't use effectively, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. But trillions of dollars of purchasing power with this little punk ass insignificant 13% of the population. You know they like to call us minorities because that sounds good to them. They want to call us minorities just like they like to say sub-Saharan Africa. All these little words are meant to belittle, to punch down slightly. These are passive aggressive ad hominem attacks on us. Sub-Africa, you know, sub-Saharan Africa, subhuman. 13% little insignificant population, minorities, when in actuality they're the minority. We're the majority. We're majority. We should just start, from now on, black people should say we should start just owning it. The majority. We should never call ourselves minority. Everything we come out of our mouths need to be the majority. Global South, majority. Global majority. That's what we should identify with, the majority, because that's what we are. And we got to start telling ourselves that we are, in fact, the majority. And we got to start acting like we are the majority and start doing things the majority does. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comment section. For the third time I said that. This is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.